So the momentum in this race is shifting. And there are signs that Donald Trump is feeling it. You may have noticed. So last week, you may have seen, he pulled out of the debate in September he had previously agreed to. So here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about that. So he won't debate, but he and his running mate sure seem to have a lot to say about me. And by the way, don't you find some of their stuff to just be plain weird? Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, say it to my face.
Oh, hell yeah. Listen to that crowd in Georgia. I am so fired up. So committed to this campaign, beating Donald Trump and his white supremacist, Christian nationalist, fascist movement. Let's fucking go. Stand up. Yeah, we are off, and that was Kamala Harris in Atlanta, Georgia, yesterday at Georgia State University. I don't think Eric Siegel was there. He was out of town. We'll be talking to him this week. Hello, and welcome to today's show. I've got Wajahat Ali joining me today for a great conversation, and if you want to skip everything and get right to it, it begins at 24 minutes. But I hope you'll stay for my news rundown. I've got headlines and sound clips for you. Feeling real good about it all at the moment. Got my Kamala Harris t-shirt. Went for a run with it. Got some reactions from people overwhelmingly. Just, I think, smiles from the few people that I ran past early yesterday morning. I'm very happy to have you here and your support on this podcast, this movement, which is a positive one. I've been so optimistic, even in the darkest times, and it is really feeling like it's paying off. I'm so happy to have you along the ride with me on this journey we call life. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Shannon White for a very heartfelt email. She said, Pete, you always get back to us with your words, your podcast every day. You reassure us, you comfort us, you inspire us. That's all we want. You don't need to personally respond to every one of my messages. Oh, Shannon, I don't respond to every one of anybody's messages, but I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And hey, ladies and gentlemen, big happy birthday to Chisel D. My dad turns 80 years young today, and he's out on his bike riding probably almost that many miles, or at least he's trying to. Big shout out to Pop, and I'm feeling very, very grateful for my mom and dad. All right, now let's get to those headlines and then sound bites and my conversation with Wajahat Ali coming up. All right, first, let's go to Lebanon, where the Israeli military carried out an airstrike yesterday in a suburb of southern Beirut, targeting a commander they say was in charge of an attack last week on the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights that killed 12 young people. In a related story in the region, American warships are making their way toward a Lebanon coast, and it is a real tinderbox right now in the Middle East, in Beirut, Lebanon, northern Israel. Let's go to Venezuela now, where violence has erupted. At least 11 people, including one soldier, have died, and about 750 more have been arrested as a result of protests in Venezuela following the highly contentious presidential election over the weekend. According to government officials and rights groups, the nation's autocratic leader, President Nicolas Maduro, was declared the winner of another 6-year term, but his government has refused to release the full results, and many countries, including the United States, have said the vote was marred by widespread irregularities. Now let's head over to Ukraine, where the reporting there is their campaign to replenish their war-weary troops is ramping up, should help fill personnel gaps on the front line in the coming weeks, according to Ukrainian officials, soldiers, and military analysts. Let's come back home to the U.S., where that wildfire in California continues to grow. It is not abating. They are not able to control it. It's the largest wildfire in the U.S. right now, swelled over 600 square miles on Tuesday, bigger than the city of Los Angeles. Fire officials in California are reporting as thousands of firefighters battled the blaze in a wilderness area north of Sacramento. More than 5,500 firefighters from across California and other states were working around the clock to douse what's being called the Park Fire, burning in the state's Central Valley about 90 miles north of Sacramento, the capital. The fire grew 385,000 acres, becoming the fifth largest wildfire in Californian history. I wonder how the guy they caught who started it feels about that. All right, moving on. Yesterday, the acting director of the Secret Service testified and got really grilled and said that he was ashamed of the security gaps that led to the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, and pledged to discipline any agents who failed to do their jobs. And in the same report, the FBI deputy director, Paul Abate, I think his name is pronounced, said that investigators found a social media account that may have belonged to Thomas Crooks, which espoused, that's the shooter, of course, which espoused anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant views and had posts about political violence. The FBI deputy director said the FBI has not yet confirmed the account belonged to Crooks. The agency still does not know a motive. Wajahat Ali mentions that in our conversation. And the guy in charge of the FBI, the Attorney General Merrick Garland, sat down with NBC News, and he disagreed with U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon's recent ruling that his appointment of Special Counsel Jack Smith was unconstitutional. I'll try to bring you some of that audio coming up. And yesterday, the Senate overwhelmingly passed a pair of children's online safety bills, a rare sign of bipartisan cooperation in the middle of a volatile and acrimonious presidential campaign. But the legislation won't make it to President Joe Biden's desk anytime soon. We'll see where it goes in the House. Now let's get to that presidential campaign, where the latest Bloomberg polls show Kamala Harris has wiped out Trump's swing state lead. How about that? We have news now that Harris plans to campaign with whoever she picks to be VP next week. So that is imminent within the next 48 hours, I'm guessing. Vice President Kamala Harris planning to travel 6 battleground states with her yet to be named running mate next week. According to people briefed on the plans, this means that she's no more than a week away from announcing her pick. I say it'll happen in the next couple of days. Who's it going to be? Senator Mark Kelly, Governor Josh Shapiro, or Tim Walz of Pennsylvania, Minnesota, or Andy Beshear of Kentucky, who I've got my money on. I think I'd like to see Pete Buttigieg. I do. I think I'd like to see that transportation secretary. I'm leaning towards Pete Buttigieg and now Tim Walz. Both David Rothkopf and Wajahat Ali like Tim Walz. I'll talk with Waj more about that. And news that the director of the Project 2025 right-wing policy blueprint, the guy that's in charge of it, he's departing. They're trying to distance themselves from this document that they can't believe they put in writing and thought it was going to somehow be effective. The disgraced former president dropped his first major ad since Kamala Harris became the de facto Democratic nominee, attacking her record on immigration. And he, for his own sake, went on Fox News and repeated his false assertion that Christians would never have to vote again if they cast their ballots for him this year, brushing aside multiple requests to walk back or clarify that statement. I mean, the Fox News people really tried to help him, Laura Ingraham and others, and he won't deny it. He just keeps doubling down on it. Guy's such a fucking idiot. In other news, Norah O'Donnell is leaving the CBS Evening News, she announced. And finally, a dangerous heat wave expected to overtake much of the U.S. this week. I feel like this is the hottest summer that I can remember, and I think technically it might be. This new long-lasting round of punishing heat, according to Washington Post, is in the forecast for much of the lower 48 states that will extend through the first week of August. Some of the highest temperatures are forecast in the central states, where a heat dome is expanding and intensifying. Jesus. More than 45 million people in parts of 18 states are under heat advisories Tuesday. An additional 16 million or so in the Midwest and Mississippi River Valley are under an excessive heat warning for even higher temperatures. In these areas, heat indexes, a measure of how hot it feels, factoring in humidity, are forecast to surpass 100 degrees, 110 degrees through midweek. By late in the work week, parts of the eastern and western United States could experience record warm afternoon highs and overnight lows. This is not good at all. But, well, here's some good news. The Olympics, the U.S. women's Olympic team led by Simone Biles won the gold medal yesterday, and good about anything else. All right, those are your headlines. Let's get to some of the sound bites from yesterday. I opened the show with Kamala Harris in Atlanta, Georgia State University. Here is a little bit more from our vice president and the de facto Democratic nominee for president.
So here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump killed, and I will sign it into law.
Yeah.
And show Donald Trump what real leadership looks like.
Yeah, Kamala Harris. I mean, if you haven't seen or if you can't hear those reactions, it's just nothing like it. We haven't seen this kind of excitement for a very, very long time, and I am feeling it. Let's move on to a few more sound bites from yesterday. Attorney General Merrick Garland sat down with NBC News yesterday, said that he was outraged by the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump, saying authorities must do everything they can to ensure that type of horrific attack never happens again. And with less than 100 days until the 2024 presidential election, he also warned that political violence poses a major threat to America's, quote, more polarized society, pointing to a quite scary increase in threats. Here's some of that report.
How alarmed are you that a 20-year-old was able to get a clear shot 150 yards from a former president?
So this is extremely alarming. We can't, our democracy will not survive if people decide that the way in which they're going to get whatever outcomes they want or whatever other motive he might have is by killing someone. That's why we have to find out what happened here, why it happened, and make sure it doesn't happen again.
All right, just a little bit from the Attorney General yesterday on NBC News. Watch it over there. And now let's go to ABC News, where Fred Trump III, who is the nephew of the disgraced former President Donald Trump, said that his uncle is, quote, atomic crazy. He's written a new book, and he said he witnessed Donald Trump using racial slurs decades ago and said that he plans to vote for Kamala Harris. The Trump way was to be complex and sometimes cruel, Fred Trump III said in an interview with ABC News, where we learned that Donald Trump thinks that disabled people should just die, including his own family members. Just absolutely repugnant, and hard to say that you're surprised, but sometimes you still are, including his own nephew. Listen to this.
It's the Trumps and how we got this way. What way? What's the Trump way?
Complex and sometimes cruel. And within every family, people know this, families are complicated. Every family has their crazy uncle. My Uncle Donald is atomic crazy, and he has put his mark on the family history.
Atomic crazy?
Yes.
What's that mean?
Means he does things that, even as much as I know him, when he's out there now, I sort of shudder and say, is this the same guy I knew? What's making him change? What got him this way? But that all being said, I've always had a good relationship, but he's done really horrific things to me, which some people will say, how could you still want to have a relationship with him? He's my uncle. He's family, and that means a lot.
After his uncle was elected president, Fred Trump says he saw an opportunity to advocate for the disabled.
I was in the Oval Office 12 times and that was our mission, to advocate for people with complex disabilities. It culminated in May of 2020 in the Oval Office. Donald was there, and he was very gracious. Several other folks were there, including the group that we brought down. We dispersed. I was asked to go back and see Donald. He greeted me with his familiar, hey, pal, how's it going? We sat down for a bit. And he just came out with, these people, all the expenses, they should just die. He's talking about human beings who have complex issues. And the first thing he could say was, they should just die.
Fred claims this wasn't isolated, describing a phone call to alert his uncle the medical fund set up by the family for his son William was running low, a fund he says the former president consistently replenished.
A couple of years ago, I called him. I said, Donald, the fund's running out. And without hesitation, he said, your son doesn't recognize you. Let him die and move to Florida.
Were you surprised?
That's a great question. My response was, no, Donald, he does recognize me, and said, I'll thanks, and hung up. Was I surprised? I don't think you could hear something like that and not be surprised. But that is what he has become. It's sad.
There's a chapter that you write about called the race card. What's that about?
I was about 10 years old, and I was at my grandparents' house, like I was a lot. And Donald, I could hear him screaming. And I went down to the driveway of my grandparents' house, and there was his white Eldorado convertible with 2 slashes. Still remember it. And he had electrical tape because the roof was black. And he used the N-word twice, just saying who he thought probably had done this.
You were 10 years old when these comments were allegedly uttered.
Right.
You sure you remember him that way?
Oh, absolutely.
He says he doesn't use the word.
Okay, he did twice that day.
Yeah, I bet you he uses it twice a day. Still, probably a lot. All right, well, that was a pretty crazy interview and book, and that guy, just the hits keep coming from the past, and his own family members, his own cabinet members, and pretty much everybody that's ever known him. All right, so let's get to that hearing yesterday in front of the Senate. You had the acting Secret Service director. And, you know, I got to say, every time that Republicans are talking about the Trump rally shooting, it highlights the need for legislation to keep AR-15s out of the hands of lunatics. But, hey, they want to continue to talk about it, and you do have to talk about what happened that day. But Ted Cruz chose to attack the acting Secret Service agent who, of course, admitted security failures before the Trump shooting. It was Ronald Rowe Jr.'s time in the barrel, and he was being questioned by an actual empty barrel, Ted Cruz, who tried to make a thing of it. Here's probably the most contentious 50 seconds or so.
Sitting president who also not only
Hold on. You're using president in a way that is not clear. Is it your testimony that in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump had the same number of agents protecting him that Joe Biden has at a comparable event?
I'm telling you the shift, the close protection shift surrounding.
That's yes
what you
no?
asked me, Senator, and I'm trying to answer it.
You are not answering it. Is it the same number of agents or not?
Senator, there is a difference between the sitting president of the United States.
Then what's the difference?
The difference?
2X, 3X, 5X,
National
10X.
Command Authority to launch a nuclear strike, sir.
I'm not
asking other assets
how many more
travel
agents
with the president that the former president will
you are
not get.
refusing to
but
answer
the number
straight.
of Secret Service agents protecting him.
Stop interrupting me.
Go ahead,
You
Senator.
are refusing to answer clear and direct questions.
I mean, he wasn't refusing to answer them at all. It was a weird moment, such a weird moment. Every time Ted Cruz is talking is a pretty weird moment, but there was a lot more in that hearing. But I want to get to one more clip. I highly recommend watching the Monday episode of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, which was so good. He made fun of that Ted Cruz, by the way, in a very funny way. But John and the team did a great job taking on all of the criticisms that the Republicans, Trump, and his campaign have been making of Kamala Harris. He also hosted Pete Buttigieg, which I thought was great. Let's listen to a little bit of his conversation with the Transportation Secretary first.
Look, there is a temptation to have our message be entirely about Donald Trump because we're so disturbed by what his return would mean. Right. And maybe a little more also about J.D. Vance because of how odd he's turned out to be.
I got to tell you, boy, did that dude drop a turd on launch. Like, I've never seen anything like that where they were like, one day they were like, the heir to the MAGA fortune and the Prince J.D. shall march. And he comes out and he's like, I hate cat ladies, you know.
No, it's rough. And you know, just like systematically insulted so many people. And it's not just the kind of things he said, but the policy ideas behind them. Like, he has this idea that you should get extra votes if you have kids.
Extra votes?
Yeah, he suggested that you should have extra votes if you're a parent.
Really?
Now, I think there's There's lots of
You don't even get that in your own house. I'm a parent. You don't get anything.
It's true. I'm starting to find that. I mean, ours are not yet 3, but and it's rooted in this strange idea that it's not just. He doesn't just say that being a parent gives you, an important role as a citizen, which I agree with, that it gives you unique perspective on the future. It's that not being a parent makes you less. Like
I think that's absolutely how they feel.
He said, people who don't have children, this is a quote, have no physical commitment to the future of this country.
Wow.
And I just think about how, no physical commitment to the future of this country. Like, when I was deployed to Afghanistan, I didn't have kids back then.
Right.
But I will tell you, especially when there was a rocket attack going on, my commitment to this country felt pretty physical.
Can I tell you something? This is why people love seeing you go on their shows, because that framing is perfect. Because it points to that idea that who are you to tell what's in someone else's heart about what they feel about the future or what they feel about this country. And the sacrifices that you made, as you said, without
all right, there you go,
Jon
Stewart and Pete Buttigieg. I recommend watching the whole thing. And now here is more from last night's episode of The Daily Show.
Well, what's done is done. You're going to have to shift gears, recalibrate. You've had Cookie Joe and Sleepy Joe on speed dial. You're going to need a new line of attack.
She doesn't like Jewish people.
Join the club. We're getting crushed out there. Right now, I'm not even sure how much we like ourselves. It's not like the old Seinfeld days when we were riding high, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You can get a bagel in Iowa. Yeah, give me a schmear in Ames, Iowa. Of course, that attack may ring hollow, seeing as Kamala Harris's husband is, let me check my notes, Jewish. Do you have anything else that could denigrate all of Kamala Harris's accomplishments by suggesting it's merely the power of the Jezebel?
It is relevant when a young candidate tries to sleep her way into politics and into power. And that is what it appears Kamala Harris did.
She's never earned or won anything. Like she was legitimately handed her original posts in California state government because she was sleeping with Willie Brown. And then he backed her in her race for San Francisco DA.
Okay, Squeaks. Listen. I don't know, guys. You're being awfully subtle here. Isn't there a grosser way you can say that?
Wow. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of substantive and elevated take from a guy who looks like he's one Mike's Hard Lemonade away from getting in a fight at his sister's wedding. You little tuft of hair on it. You're not fooling anybody, Baldy. So sexist saying Kamala Harris slept her way to the top. Joe Biden and Donald Trump literally slept their way to the top, and we never heard a peep about it. Does anybody have a substantive critique?
Her record is extraordinarily radical. Let me say at the outset, Kamala can't have my guns, she can't have my gasoline engine, and she sure as hell can't have my steaks and cheeseburgers.
Sir, I don't want to be rude, but it does appear that you could at least share some of your cheeseburgers. Looks like you'll still be okay, is that right? Tubbs. Good to see you have mutton chops in case you get hungry.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Any jokes about Ted Cruz make me laugh. There you go. Jon Stewart and The Daily Show. Watch the whole thing. So good. All right, that's all I've got for you here on the headlines and sound bites. It's time to get to my conversation with Wajahat Ali, who launched a brand new Substack, and I know a lot of you are already following and subscribing, but I highly recommend, if you haven't yet, go check out The Left Hook with Wajahat Ali, and obviously you're going to want to read him at the Daily Beast. You're going to want to listen to his podcast, Democracy-ish. Support him on all the social media. Let him know that you heard him here. He's always great, and as soon as he joins me at the video link, I am already recording and off to the races, and today is no different than any other. Let's do it with one of the best, one of your favorites, Wajahat Ali, right now. Yeah!
Pete, Dominic, I'm your DEI friend, Wajahat Ali, also known as a Brown.
A Brown. What does DEI stand for? Doing everything
intelligent. Diversity, excellence, and intelligence. Doing everything Indian. Down with everything Indian. DEI basically means not white, not male. And also DEI means finding a perfect Midwestern white for Kamala Harris.
Who do you like?
Or a border state white. Or a Rust Belt white.
I'm going with Andy Bashir. Who you got?
Oh, you like Bashir? Oh, can I ask you why?
Yeah, because he is the anti-J.D. Vance. Like, he's the real thing. He's the real Appalachia. He's the real understanding of poor whites. I don't really know his story as well. I do know a lot of listeners from Kentucky told me that, and they really like him. And he's one of the only people that kind of the redneck whites are. I'm not saying they support him, but they, I guess, accept him. That was the way it was told to me by Kentucky listeners. So I think
if Vance is not carried to term by Trump, is he still your pick?
Oh, it's a great question. Do you think that he could? And how does he get rid of Vance?
I mean, I think it's tough, but still potentially doable. It's tough, but doable. That's what I heard last time. I don't want to give Republicans any ideas, but I think the sooner they drop Vance, the better. It's not going to help them. But this goes to show you that maybe Trump should have been pro-DEI. If he had added Haley a couple of months ago, and I'm not saying it would have been better because she's done so many 180s, and the base, much like J.D. Vance, they don't trust her. But woman, she's a good campaigner. It would soften the MAGA's message, right? Daughter of immigrants, good contrast to Kamala. Tim Scott and his magical white vanishing girlfriend. You could prove that you're not racist. Look, my black friend, the black Tim Scott, Marco. Ditto, but he went with J.D. Vance, who's a clone of him, and every day a freaky, weird, nasty, ugly story comes out about J.D. Vance. It's not just a one-off about the childless cats. It's like, he is the groomed boy of Peter Thiel, billionaires. I think he should drop him and replace him, but with what you said, Bashir is my number 2 pick. He comes from, his father, as you know, was governor. He runs Kentucky, but as a liberal, right. Very well-liked, young. He's got that Southern drawl, good on television, good communicator, well-liked even by the Kentucky Republican whites. And it gives a nice little contrast to Kamala, right? My number 1 pick right now is Tim Walz, Midwestern, Minnesota nice, teacher, veteran, gun owner, did a 180 on the NRA, is bold, goes on offense, is non-apologetic for progressive values, is able to couch those values in a way that is very mainstream. It gave Harris this now go-to attack of weird, which has taken off and is very good on camera. And what you need is someone who compliments you, but also helps you add, right? Someone who preaches to the choir, but brings in more folks. The third person is Kelly. Kelly, I would say, gives you a border state, well-liked, could get you Arizona potentially, Nevada, husband of Gabby Giffords, veteran. But that's my ranking right now. Walz, Bashir, and Kelly. And what I will say, even if it's Kamala and a coconut tree, I'll still take it because you're going up against Trump and Vance.
What about Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor? A lot of people think that'll be.
Okay, so what I have been saying for the last week and has been picking
probably up something anti-Semitic is what you've been saying.
Yeah, it's because of his nose. I don't like his Jewish nose. That's what trolls have said, MAGA trolls, which is all BS because these MAGA trolls are perfectly fine with Donald Trump's anti-Semitism. As of this recording earlier today, he called Democratic Jews the bad Jews. Again, he promotes the dual loyalty stereotype.
If you said if you're a Democrat and if you're Jewish and you vote Democrat, you should have your head examined. That is inherently anti-Semitic. I mean, that is a terrible, terrible thing for anyone to say in any position of power. Anyway,
and that's 75% of American Jews, Pete. Head examined. You're a bad Jew. You should have your head examined. You're not loyal to Israel, which why should they be? They're Jewish Americans. He's promoted the dual loyalty stereotypes. He sat with Nick Fuentes, dined with him and Kanye.
Yeah.
Nick Fuentes, one of the leading anti-Semites and young white supremacists, has refused to apologize for it. Promotes the white replacement theory, which is anti-Semitic, has radicalized people to commit violence. And just as of this recording an hour ago, according to the social media of the 20-year-old shooter, who was a registered Republican in his failed assassination attempt of Trump, but he killed the father, he also promoted these replacement theory, anti-Semitic, and anti-immigrant conspiracies that are now part and parcel of Donald Trump's campaign. So it isn't because Shapiro is Jewish. I want to remind folks that Kamala Harris's husband is Jewish. We don't care. It's about the policies. The reason why I think Shapiro will be a bad pick, and I really hope the Beltway, Acela path towards New York and D.C. pundits and advisors who are really pushing Shapiro really listen to the ground. I was at the American Federation of Teachers conference last week. It's a big teachers union. It was 4,000 people, a lot of organizers and workers, and many of the folks there on the grassroots. I'm not talking about Arabs or Muslims. I'm talking about Black and Latino folks who are like, I hope it's not Shapiro. Why? 2 reasons. Number 1, Shapiro is pro-vouchers. You've talked about vouchers. You've talked about the attack on public education. Big no-no. Number 2, Shapiro went to the right and really attacked these pro-ceasefire, anti-war protesters, right? Oftentimes led by Jews. And he referred to them as the KKK. I'm telling you, Pete, folks haven't forgotten those 2 issues. That will dampen enthusiasm. And maybe he'll get you Pennsylvania, maybe. But 5 minutes ago, right before I jumped on, you saw that latest poll that said that Harris, as of today, Pete, is +4 in Pennsylvania. So unleash Shapiro in Pennsylvania, unleash Whitmer in Michigan, and I say go with one of these Midwestern whites. Go with Walz or Bashir. And if you have to, then go with Kelly, because then you could say border state, Kelly, astronaut, veteran, Arizona, Nevada. And then maybe you don't need Pennsylvania.
That's interesting. I'm getting into the merch business, and I'm selling now as a result of, I've just put them up. This is how quickly you can do it. Just based on your mention of Midwestern whites, I'm selling T-shirts. Midwestern whites with all the faces of those Midwestern white governors. I guess it'll only be a hot item while we speculate who she's going to pick. But
well, actually, you know what? If she picks Walz, you should do a Midwestern whites for Harris, and you will literally sell a lot of. You will actually sell a lot of shirts. I'm being honest. If you have Harris and Walz, and you make you could photocopy it, and you know how they've seen the posters now. They've done the hope with Obama, the hate with Trump, the heal with Biden, and the grow with Kamala. You just do Midwestern whites for Harris Walz with a photo of Harris and Walz. You will make money, man.
Let me ask you about, you were writing over at your brand new Substack, which I hope all stand-up listeners, I don't think we've even talked since you launched. It's The Left Hook, the Substack, and you're publishing every day, which I love. My 2 favorite new Substacks are you and Rothkopf.
Oh, thank you.
Need to Know and Left Hook, reading them every day. You mentioned Tim Walton, this word weird and how it's taken off. But your latest piece is hella weird and hella fascist. And I guess you're trying to say, let's not make it sound too innocuous.
Look, whatever works and whatever penetrates. Weird penetrates. It cuts through, and people like
it's new.
Wonderful. But you need, Mary Trump just said this, and I agree with her because it's the Olympics. You need more arrows in your quiver. So lead with hella weird, but also then combine it, Pete, with the attacks, right? So lead with weird, but then that allows you to say, look, these guys are so weird. Not only do they talk about electrocution and sharks and Hannibal Lecter, they also want to control women's bodies. They also want to take away porn, but they want your child to monitor your porn. That's what Mike Johnson does with his kid. Hella weird. They also they want to terminate the Constitution. They also support violent insurrectionists. They love QAnon shaman. So Tim Walz, who popularized this, also had it really right at a rally in Minnesota a couple of days ago. And I mentioned this quote. This is the quote that I really like, that I want people to run with. And I'm going to quote him. The fascists depend on us going back, but we're not afraid of weird people. We're a little bit creeped out, but we're not afraid. That, to me, is the perfect encapsulation. Lead with weird, it cuts through, but then also attach the F word, which, as you and I have talked about on your show, Democrats have been timid. I don't think they need to be timid. Remember when Dark Brandon last year said semi-fascist and it took off? So combine both. Weird, and then it's like a jab with a hook. The weird is the jab, but then the hook comes in with the fascist, and then you have a laundry list of examples, so many examples, that both support the weird and the fascist. And I think the combination really is creepy and dangerous. But weird is the way to get there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was the victim of fascism in our local school board fight. I have seen it. I totally agree. But at the same time, I think that when you've got an old product, Donald Trump, somebody we've gotten to know very, very well, sometimes you need a new spin. We've tried everything, and whatever's going to work, it either has or it hasn't to break the fever. But this is good, weird, and to describe J.D. Vance that way, and now they're making fun of her laugh. What about all of the sexist and racist attacks? They're so over. We already covered the DEI thing. They just don't seem to realize that is not going to help them. You even saw pushback from Neil Cavuto on Fox News against this black congressman that I didn't know was a Republican or that he existed, and others, Stuart Varney, Trey Gowdy, 3 anchors on Fox telling elected, leaders, Republican leaders, to maybe don't do this, maybe don't do that. But Trump doubled down on it in an interview on Fox News. Laura Ingraham went off on her laugh and said she's crazy. What do you make of especially the sexist attacks?
Leopard doesn't change his spots. And when Mike Johnson, the same creepy Christian nationalist, the leader of Republicans in the House, the speaker, is telling you, hey, maybe we should cut down on the racism, already you're off to a bad start. And then number 2, like you just mentioned, they are incapable of cutting down on the racism, especially from the top down, and on the misogyny. They're stuck. Racism and misogyny is part and parcel of their brand. It is not an exception. It is the rule. And Donald Trump is a misogynist and a racist. When you mock her laughter, people are like, I've never heard Donald Trump laugh. What's wrong with laughing? When you call her Lying Kamala and call her a DEI hire, that is a very unsettled code word that she doesn't deserve it. She doesn't belong here. She's not experienced. She's just a broad, and she's black. That's why she's here. Oh, meanwhile, I'm the guy who hosted a TV show, and J.D. Vance is 39 years old, with a year in the Senate, who got groomed by billionaires and is a venture capitalist. But this broad, because she's a broad who laughs too much and dances too much, and is not a real mom because she's a stepmom and she has no kids. Yeah, you shouldn't vote for her. I mean, the way it lands to the point where even when I was on Piers Morgan's show, and he's gone all in now with Trump and MAGA for his show, he even said, this doesn't sound good. This is a bit distasteful. And Cavuto and Ingram and others.
You were so good. You were so good on Piers Morgan. I grabbed the clip and played the entire thing on the podcast.
Oh, that's
like
awesome,
3.5 minutes.
You. No.
Oh, it was so good. It was one of the best moments I've seen.
It doesn't help you. Yeah. And then it was Senator Kennedy who portrays himself as Foghorn Leghorn, even though he's a corporate attorney, very wealthy, wrote Oxford. But I digress. He was stumped. He had nothing else. Did you see him? He was like, ooh. And so you realize, Pete, that without racism and misogyny, they have nothing on Kamala Harris. Nothing. Well, she's too liberal. It's not going to work because they're so extreme.
Well, they're saying that she let bad people go, but they're also saying that she prosecuted too many people.
Yeah. So she's a cop and a prosecutor, but then she let bad people go. But then again, I'm a criminal and I love violence. See, the thing is this, I was telling this to someone, is that Republicans have gone so extreme. And we've talked about this on your show, especially on certain, I think most policies, they're boxed in, especially with women's rights, right? Roe, as we have talked about on your show, when they overturned Roe, they unleashed the wrath of women. And because they have emboldened the extremists and because the extremists have taken over the party, they're stuck in a corner. Nobody puts baby in a corner. They put baby in the corner. And they want to put that baby in the woman's body. And then once the baby comes out, basically forget about the baby. But if they pivot a little bit to the left, they lose their base. They lose Christian nationalists, right? So now they have to brag about overturning Roe. Trump does. Now it's much.
Oh, it didn't get mentioned at the RNC. The word didn't get mentioned, abortion. So are they bragging about it? I feel like they're running from it.
He just at a rally took credit again for putting in the Supreme Court that overturned Roe. And also in Project 2025, what's really freaky is they talk about fetal personhood. So fetal personhood is the coded language that apparently when there's like even an electrical pulse, that life is a life. And as such, there goes IUDs and birth control. There is your national abortion ban. They're also against no-fault divorces. Thank you, J.D. Vance. They've also signaled going after marriage equality, birth control. And also now the misogyny, and also now J.D. Vance even being more misogynist than Donald Trump with his whole, childless cat ladies, they're psychotic. And then if you really want to stretch it out, and Molly Jong-Fast, our friend today, said it on Morning Joe, which is why she's trending. They took a quote of hers out of context, but this is going to expose them. The reason why they hate women so much and they want babies is they want white babies. A lot of this stems from white supremacist conspiracy theories, such as the replacement theory. They want white women to have more white babies because they're terrified of the rest of us replacing them. And they want white women to go back to the kitchen and be a trad wife. And they believe feminism has taken away women from their rightful place as bearers of white children. That is the entire enchilada. And there's so much out there, Pete, that once this gets exposed, in addition to all this hate, they're stuck. Like, how do you pivot from this?
Really, really interesting and important points. And how do you pivot from Project 2025? Waj, we've been covering politics, talking about it for a long time. We've never seen something as scary as this document to motivate, to do whatever it takes to get people who are either apolitical involved and get very political involved people even more fired up and terrified. It might be argued that conservatives are more motivated by fear and Democrats and progressives are more motivated by hope and optimism and inspiration. I don't know. I think humans are motivated by both and we're all on a spectrum. But this Project 2025 boogeyman is so effective and everybody's talking about it. Trump is running from it. What do you make of the overall motivation that is, and how unprecedented it seems to be in politics, in presidential campaign, to have progressives so terrified and familiar with this crazy shit they want to do?
This is Republicans overplaying their hand with chutzpah, aggressiveness, arrogance, and they believed that they had the courts. They believed that Joe Biden was going to be a loser. They believed so much so in their extremist vision that Project 2025, Pete, is their vanilla mainstream version of their plan. They thought this would be the palatable version. That's what happens when extremists take over your party. And so Project 2025, which you have talked about and we have talked about for a while, is what I call the MAGA blueprint for a white Christian nationalist minority rule of America. It's the weakening of democracy for a MAGA dictatorship. And the analogy that I've given that works is, imagine a Bond villain in the first 10 minutes of a Bond movie finding James Bond, tapping him on the shoulder and saying, "Oh, hey, James, I'm the supervillain. Do you want to know my plot? Would you like a slideshow?" And they literally just gave us a slideshow. And then furthermore, to underscore how tone deaf they are, how removed they are from the majority, the president of Heritage Foundation, which is the main conservative think tank behind Project 2025, just 3 weeks ago, openly said on Steve Bannon's show, which Steve Bannon couldn't host because he had to report to jail, "We're in the process of a second revolution, and it will be bloodless if the left allows it to be." And who is writing the foreword for Kevin Roberts, the same guy, the president of the Heritage Foundation, who said that batshit quote openly? Who's writing the foreword for his forthcoming book?
I know the answer to this trivia question. It's J.D. Vance, but did you know that his real last name is not Vance?
Yeah, he's changed his name multiple times.
So anyway, the point is that back to 2025. Sorry.
And also, Trump has tried unsuccessfully to remove himself from Project 2020, but he can't, because so many people from the Trump administration and in the Trump orbit have their fingerprints in Project 2025. They're leading it. They're organizing it. It's not just the Heritage Foundation, folks. It's over 100 conservative organizations. All of the leaders of the right-wing conservative ecosystem have supported Project 2025, all of the right-wing billionaires. And furthermore, we have quotes from the leaders of Project 2025 saying it's Trump's Project 2025. And furthermore, Kevin Roberts got caught. They haven't reported this that much, but about a week ago, there was a conversation that leaked that said, "Oh, it's okay that Trump is, distancing himself from us. We know he's part of us. He has to do it right now for politics. But no, we support him. And this is his."
Right.
He's stuck.
He's stuck. They're stuck.
They have
because
to
of this.
Look, what we've been saying on your show for like 8 years now is it's a Faustian bargain that Republicans made with Donald Trump. That's what I've said. And they will either ride him to the top or ride him to the bottom. They rode him to the top in 2016. But I said, folks, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, this is your warning. You have to ride them all the way down. And now, like lemmings, they got to ride them off the cliff. Let me be optimistic. I know a lot can change. The last 2 weeks have felt like 2 years. I believe momentum is on the side of Harris. Even with the Biden-Harris ticket, I still thought Biden might edge him out because I said Republicans have underestimated the righteous rage of women. I've been paying attention to the 2022 election. I paid attention to the special election where abortion rights were on the ballot. I paid attention to the French elections a couple of weeks ago. And now you have Harris, and now you have momentum, and now you have energy. Yeah. A type of energy that you and I have not seen since 2008.
Yeah, exactly. People always, I'm sure you're one of them, I have said, criticize the American presidential campaigns, how much money we spend, how long they go on for 2 years. And we compare, we wish we had these snap campaigns that lasted, 2 months or something, the way they do in Canada and Europe and other countries. Parliamentary, obviously, systems are much different. And so we can't do that, but we just did. We paralleled it by creating a 100-day campaign with a different candidate, and therefore we have all of everything to do, all the excitement, all the fundraising, all the volunteering, all the newness, and all the inspiration. And I think it matters. I think it matters so much. That's where a lot of this is coming from. Because even if she was the candidate and she won through a traditional primary, there wouldn't be this excitement. She'd have been vetted. She'd have been hurt in a primary process. Not going to be the case. And she seems brand new. And look at everybody's behind her. What do you make of all these grassroots phone calls and so on?
Fantastic. I've been seeing as many of the videos as I can. Yesterday, I saw the white dudes for Harris. Substantive. Yep. So many stellar whites, the best whites. You had Samwise Gamgee. You had Luke Skywalker. You had all the VP candidates show up, pretty much most of them. And they raised $4 million because the whites have money. I saw the white women for Harris. Very impressive. Pink, Shannon Watts, and others. They raised like $3 million. Women for Harris was yesterday as well. Not just white women, folks. Women for Harris, they raised money. You got Latinas, South Asians, Asian Americans for Harris. And so people are saying, playing by race is stupid. No. I think what you're seeing is a multiracial, multi-faith movement, a multicultural coalition that is coming around a central figure, a central theme, a central goal to elect Harris. And that's why it's so popular, right? So instead of a type of balkanization and fragmentation, it's the opposite. It's all these different groups rallying their respective communities with authentic messengers around the same purpose and goal, which is something that Republicans don't have. They have whites for Trump and a Tim Scott and a Marco Rubio and a Nikki Haley. That's all they got.
Yeah. Before I let you go, let me just ask you about one of your most recent pieces over at your Substack, The Left Hook with Wajahat Ali. Wajahat. You can pronounce it, a lot of different ways. She likes to pronounce it Wajahat, Ganda. Biden goes bold on the Supreme Court. You write he can be bolder. This was announced yesterday, and, there's a lot to say about this. We've been watching this issue for a long time. It's gotten really bad. This guy is the most traditionalist of all, being on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate for so long, right. President Biden. And now he is asking for reform. Oh, my goodness, look at this. It's going to die. It's going nowhere, but it does move the Overton window, the conversation a little bit, right?
I think it's fantastic. I give credit where credit's due. The fact that, like you said, Joe Biden, an institutionalist who dragged his feet for years, should have done this 3 years ago when they had control of the Senate, but didn't, finally realized, okay, how can I cap off my legacy? How can I help Harris? How can I help Democrats? And he did something really wise here. First and foremost, these are 3 very popular reforms, meaning if you sell this to the American public, they'll say, yes, this makes sense. You don't even have to sell the last 2. The 3 that I'm sure you've talked about is, number 1, the constitutional amendment, which won't happen because you need 2/3 of the House and the Senate, which says no one's above the law. This is in reference to the batshit crazy absolute immunity ruling 6-3 based on partisan lines, which essentially is a gift wrap present to Donald Trump for him to escape accountability. And essentially, let's be honest, be a dictator if he wins the election. The other 2, the second one is term limits for 18 years, already has about 72 to 75% of Americans who say, yes, these unelected people should not sit there until they die or become vegetables. And the third one is enforceable code of ethics. Yes, why are these people above the law? There should be accountability. The fact that Clarence Thomas is getting lavish gifts, he should be able to disclose it. He should recuse himself. Why are their spouses so batshit crazy? with two flags, violent insurrectionist flags from Martha Ann, and the fact that Ginny Thomas, sits there as a conservative activist and no one discloses anything. There should be disclosure. There should be recusal. Yes, enforce this. So you already have the public behind this. But what's really good about this, Pete, is just because you don't have the votes right now doesn't mean you shouldn't advance it. I remember I was old enough where marriage equality was seen as too radical. I was old enough where, fighting for a minimum wage was too radical. I was at an age where a black female president was too radical a month ago. You have to will it into existence. You have to give people faith through something tangible. And people are like, oh, we can actually do this? Oh, I'm down with it. So you lead with it. You wish it into existence. You have the president say, this is my plan. And then you put the feet to the fire and you say, Republicans, why aren't you joining us? This is bipartisan, right? You rally the base. You campaign on this. You should campaign on Supreme Court reform. Supreme Court has 35 to 38% favorability, the lowest ever. This is a win for Democrats, not just the president, Harris, and her VP ticket, but top down. Because when it comes to enforceability, this is the next step. This is the great opening that Biden has given Democrats without saying it. How do you enforce number 2 and 3? How do you enforce term limits and enforceability? You get rid of the filibuster and you go for simple majority and you prime the pump. You prime people. And then people say, what the F, man? How come we can't get this done? Oh, right, because of the stupid filibuster? F the filibuster. Give me the simple majority. And then if you're Democrats, you say, give me the House, give me the Senate, give me the presidency. I'll give you Supreme Court reform because these mother effers are going to stay for the next 20 years and take away more rights. That's the big one.
I like the way you talk. That was a sling blade.
I talk pretty.
I got my Kamala T-shirt. Did you get the merch? You wearing merch?
I haven't done the merch yet.
All right.
My merch stood up. Look, we gotta push them through. Whoever it is, Harris and a coconut tree. We gotta defeat Trump and Vance. And if we defeat Trump and Vance this time, I think it won't go away. I think it'll be very much weakened, Pete.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that next time or on November 5th. I am so grateful to see you and have you joining me today. I missed you. I really appreciate you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there he goes, Wajahat Ali. Go subscribe to the new Substack, The Left Hook. Read him at the Daily Beast. Listen to his podcast, Democracy-ish. And that is all I've got for you on today's show. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Go wish my dad a happy birthday. I don't know how you're going to do that. I don't know. I'll find ways to get my dad happy 80th birthday wishes. I'm going to probably talk to him on his birthday, so hopefully I'll bring some of my conversation with him. I'll share it with you tomorrow. All right, that's it. That's all I've got for you. Thank you very much for listening today. Go write a rating and review on Spotify and iTunes. Subscribe to the podcast with a paid subscription, patreon.com/Pete Dominic. John Carroll taking us out right now.
For the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. They knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on.